What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be installing a 220 outlet for the Welder. Stay tuned. Full disclaimer up front, I am not a professional electrician. I'm not completely dumb to electrical work. I did install this little 110 outlet over here. I just connected it to the one that was already installed for the sprinkler over here. I also put another outlet in over here on this side, and this one I connected to the 110 outlet that's on the interior wall. With that being said, I have never actually installed a 220 or 240 volt. I tried looking up all of the codes. I couldn't really find a whole lot online. I didn't really say that there was a whole lot. The only thing that was very specific with 220 and 240 volt is you can only have one per circuit. Whereas your 110s, you could have an entire room full of 110s that's running off of 130 or 140 amp breaker. Every single 220 or 240 has to have its own breaker. Here's everything that I picked up at Lowe's, and I will go over all of that here in a second. I watched quite a few install videos on YouTube. A lot of the videos that I watched, it was usually big garages and people were trying to run the lines all the way over the garage. So they had to use a lot of external conduit to do that. I just didn't want to install any of that external conduit. I wanted to have all of the wiring hidden and just have the outlet on the wall by itself. So the one thing specifically that your house has to have to be able to do it this way is your garage needs to be sitting underneath the attic. The reason why is because all of your wires coming from your circuit breaker box over here is going up and into the attic. I'm gonna go ahead and make some space. I'm gonna get all of this stuff moved out of the way and then get those things taken off the wall and then get this cover taken off of the breaker box. Breaker box cover is off, and no, the power is not turned off yet. I haven't touched any of the wiring. Before I do go touching anything in here, I am going to shut off all of the main power. Before I get started on any of this, I am going to go ahead and show you everything that I got to install the 220. Here's everything that I picked up. I actually got it at Lowe's, but you can get it at Home Depot as well. The 50 amp circuit breaker over here. I did take a picture of my breaker box before I left because there are different types of circuit breakers. So just make sure when you get one, it matches up with the ones that are already there. Here is the actual outlet. Like I said before, every 220 or 240 volt outlet is a dedicated outlet. So there's only going to be one per circuit, and usually it's going to be for a dedicated appliance. So for this instance, it's going to be my welder. Here's the 220 power cord for my welder. You can see it has 3 prongs here. There are some other different styles of 220 prongs, and I think there's actually like some 4-prong ones out there. So just make sure whatever appliance you're using it for, the female end matches up with the male end. Since I am going to be running a 50 amp breaker, I went ahead and got some 6-gauge wire. So this is 6-2, so that means it actually has 2 big power wires in there and then 1 ground cable. They actually have 6-3 also that has 2 power cables, your ground cable, and then a neutral cable as well. Again, just like the outlet, the wire type that you're going to get is going to depend on the appliance's power cord. So for this one, 2 powers and a ground, 6-2. If you had 4 prongs, it would be 3 powers. It would technically be 2 powers, a neutral, and then a ground. You would get the 6-3. Here is the outlet box that's going to go on the wall and the face cover that's going to go over the top of it. If you are getting one of these, make sure you get the screws that come with the faceplate. They tape them underneath. And even though I'm not running any conduit, I did go ahead and pick up some of these conduit nipples and lock nuts. I am still going to have to punch one of these holes out in the back here to run the wire through. And I don't know how sharp that's going to be. So this will allow me to create a little passageway for that wire to come through, and I know it's not going to get cut. Same thing with the breaker panel over here. I'm going to go ahead and try to knock one of those holes out and run one of the nipples and nuts through there as well. If you are doing this yourself, definitely measure where you're going to be putting your outlet at first. That way you don't come up short. This wire is very, very expensive. I actually measured 10 feet, but I went ahead and bought 12. I'm going to try to do everything I can before I have to shut the power off. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on getting the box mounted up. I'm going to run up in the attic and get the holes drilled so that I can drop the wires down, and then I'll work on getting the box wired up. So like I said, most of the outlets that I saw installed on YouTube, they did it externally with conduit. So all the wiring came in from the top or the side or the bottom, but I want to come in through the back. I would also like it to be mounted on a stud so that I know that it's secure. Ideally, I would like to use these middle two holes right here so that it's mounted evenly. However, if I do that, I won't be able to use the little punch out there and be able to run my wires through because the stud will be in the way. Not a big deal though. I'm going to use the new drill press and put another hole at the top up here, and then I'll use this far outside one and then the new one that I drill and use those for the stud. I got the top hole in the outlet box here, and then I've got my holes drilled into my stud right there. So I'm not gonna go ahead and mount it up just yet because again, I still have to add in my little nipple and locking washer here along with the wiring. Now that I've got all of this ready to go, I'm gonna run up in the attic and get the holes drilled and the boards at the top of the frame. Up in the attic, I laid a bunch of flooring down over here, but I never put any flooring back on this side. I honestly never thought I would ever have to go that far out. So I am gonna have to be careful and stay on these runner boards right here. If I fall on that sheetrock, I will definitely fall through. But you can see right here, all of the wiring that is coming up from the breaker panel. So that's where I'm going to be dropping my new 6-gauge wire down. And then moving right over here, you can kind of see that back piece of wood back there. I'm gonna drill a hole straight through, and then I will run my wire down to my outlet box. That 6-gauge wire is pretty thick and I do not have a drill bit big enough, so I'm just going to be using one of these paddle bits. I got the hole drilled and the 6-gauge wire dropped down. So as you guys saw, my drill with the paddle bit was too long because it was hitting the roof here. So I knew that ahead of time. So where I knew I wanted the hole to be at, I just moved it over a couple of inches. That way I knew if I drilled it at an angle, I could still drop this wire down. I'm not going to do anything else up here right now. Like I said, I'm going to wait to do everything over here when I shut off the power. So I'm going to go back down into the garage and then I'm going to go ahead and get this outlet box wired up. Back down in the garage, now that I've got my wire dropped down, I'm going to get my outlet box lined up here, and then I'm going to get a hole drilled in the drywall for the wire to come through. I obviously want this box sitting flush on the wall, so even though this hole is about 1 inch, I'm actually going to be cutting it at 1 3/8 inches, which is the widest point of the nipple that's going to go on the back of it. Again, I'll be using a paddle bit. The box is all ready to go. I ended up putting the nipple and the nut on backwards. This is going to give me a lot more space inside of the box for the wiring. Not to mention, it's not going to matter because this thing is going to be going inside of that hole in the wall. So as you can see here, this is my little trick for running some wiring. I use just a shoestring and then a bolt or a nut. And then I have this old clothes hanger here that I've used to paint on and things like that. And I have hooks on either end. So what I do is just reach inside of there. I can hook that shoestring and then pull it straight out of there. And then I'll tie my 6-gauge wiring to the shoestring up top and pull it on through. This is a 2-man job, so I'm gonna run inside and grab the wife and see if she will pull this thing through while I feed it to her from the top up there. I got the wire through. It was not without difficulty. Luckily, the wife did come out here and help me pull it through while I pushed from the top. This heavy gauge wire is just very difficult to deal with, and not to mention it was curling up inside of the wall there, so using the shoestring method or some kind of other like fishing line to stick up in the wall definitely helps out. I am excited to finally have this thing through though. Now I can go get my outlet wired up and get it installed in the box and get the box mounted on the wall. I've got the outlet fully installed, so everything went pretty smooth. The only thing that did not work were the little screws or bolts here that the faceplate came with to attach the faceplate to the outlet. These were not long enough, so I had some screws. They were exactly the right size, so I just used those and it worked out perfect. Like every project, this has taken much longer than I had anticipated, and it is already dark outside. So I'm gonna call it quits for tonight, and then when I get back with you guys, I will get the new outlet wired up to the breaker box. It's the next day. I finished up installing the new outlet last night. Originally, I wanted to be able to hide all the wiring, but I am gonna have to add some conduit on this side. So it'll go in right here above the breaker box into the drywall and then shoot straight up and go through the ceiling. I'm gonna run up to Lowe's or Home Depot and get some conduit and then get some fittings, and then I will show you what I got when I get back. Back from the store, I got all my conduit. I went to Home Depot this time. I only needed about a foot of this conduit, but you can only buy it in 10-foot lengths. So I'm gonna end up having 9 feet left over. Kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Picked up a few different fittings as well. So here's a female end. You can see the threads. Here's the male end to go with it. This is just a little adapter. And then I've got some conduit straps and then this conduit body LB style. Basically how I'm gonna do this is put a hole in the drywall right here, and that is where that conduit body will fit it, just like that. From there, it's gonna run up into the ceiling. I'll put another hole up there, and then that's where the male and female end will attach. Everything is 1.5 inches, so 1.5 inch conduit PVC, 1.5 inch fittings. The only thing that is 1.25 inch is this conduit body, and I believe it's just because it's talking about the internal diameter. However, the external diameter here is the same size as the 1.5 inch. I'm gonna get my holes cut in the drywall. I'm gonna do the ceiling first, and then I will get my conduit cut to length, get all of this put together, and then I will work on getting the wire ran. Come here. Go say hi. Measure it out for me. Make sure I got it right. Oop.
Okay, come on.
I've got all of the conduit installed, and then I've already got the 6-gauge wire ran. So I ended up not using the other nipple and locking nut on the box here. I just ran it where all of the other 6-gauge wiring is coming out of. Conduit actually went together very, very easily. My little adapter worked great right there in the center. And then my little female to male adapter up there at the top looked good. And then this little centerpiece I cut out from this gigantic 10-foot piece with my little Harbor Freight Dremel. Last thing to do is get this thing wired into the breaker box. All the wiring for the 220 outlet is ran and everything is connected. So I should be able to flip my power back on here. There we go. I should have power. I'm gonna get the 220 power cord connected to the welder and go ahead and plug it in and make sure it fires up. There we go. I'm super excited to finally have this 220 installed. I was having some other electrical issues that my friends Cody and Travis come over and help me with, and I truly appreciate it if you guys are watching. I've been practicing with the welder on the 110. This is literally my lifetime of MIG experience right here, but it's coming along. I am excited to be able to weld with the 220 power now. This thing is supposed to have a 100% duty cycle at 115 amps on the 220 volt. I'm not gonna get to weld with it any today. I'm gonna get the cover put back on. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please hit that like button. Please consider subscribing to the channel, and I will catch you next time.